Hello, dear students. Welcome to the new session. Hope you all are taking good care of yourselves. Hope you are enjoying the virtual lessons. Let's move to our next topic. Children, you have already studied 12 months in a year, but there is a story related to this concept, which is a Russian folk tale of Miracula. Now let's see this. This we are going to be dividing into two videos, out of which today we are going to see the first video. Now let's read the lesson first. The first 2.5, 3 pages actually of the lesson. Lesson number 5, 12 months. Once upon a time in a faraway country, there lived a mother who had two daughters. One was her own child, the other was her stepdaughter. She was very fond of her own daughter, but she hated her stepdaughter. The only reason was that Moroccola, the stepdaughter, was prettier than her own daughter Helena. The gentle hearted Moroccola did not know how beautiful she was, and so she could never make out why her mother was always so cross with her. Moroccola had to do all the housework, tidying up the cottage, cooking, washing, spinning, weaving, and sewing. She liked work and she did it all without a word of complaint, while Helena spent the time adorning herself and lazing about. Even then, Helena and her mother scolded and rated and abused Moroccola every day. They envied her so much that one day they decided to throw her out in the freezing cold to get rid of her. Go, Miracula, and get me some violets from the forest. I want to wear them and to smell them, said Helena. But, my dear sister, it is impossible to find violets in the snow, said poor Miracula. How dare you argue when I tell you to do something? Off you go at once, and if you don't bring me violets from the forest, I'll kill you, said Helena threateningly. The stepmother caught hold of Moroccola, turned her out of the door, and slammed it to after her. Moroccola went into the forest, weeping bitterly. The snow lay deep, and there wasn't a human footprint to be seen. Moroccola wandered about for a long time, tortured by hunger and trembling with cold. At last she saw a light in the distance. She went towards the glow which came from the top of a mountain. A big fire was burning there, and round the fire were 12 stones with 12 men sitting on them. 3 of them had snow white beards. The 3 were not so old, and 3 were still younger. The 3 youngest were the handsomest of them all. They were not speaking, but all sitting silent. These 12 men were the 12 months. Great January sat highest of all. His hair and beard were as white as snow, and in his hand he held a club. Moroccola was frightened. She stood still for a time in terror, but growing bolder, she went up to them and said, Please, kind sirs, let me warm my hands at your fire. Great January nodded and asked her, Why have you come here, my dear little girl? What are you looking for? I am looking for violets, answered Moroccola. This is no time to be looking for violets, for everything is covered with snow, answered Great January. Yes, I know, but my sister Helena and my stepmother said that I must bring them some violets from the forest. If I don't bring them, they'll kill me. Tell me, fathers, please tell me where I can find them. Great January stood up and went to one of the younger months. It was March, and giving him the club, he said, Brother, take the high seat. March took the high seat upon the stone and waved the club over the fire. The fire blazed up. The snow began to melt. The trees began to bud, and the ground was at once covered with grass. It was springtime. The violets began to bloom among their little leaves, and before Miracula had time to think, so many of them had sprung up that they looked like a blue cloth spread out on the ground. Now pick them quickly, Miracula, commanded March. Miracula picked them joyfully till she had a big bunch. Then she thanked the months with all her heart and scampered merrily home. Helena and the stepmother wondered when they saw Miracula bringing the violets. They opened the door to her, and the scent of violets filled all the cottage. Where did you get them? Asked Helena sulkily. They are growing under the bushes in the forest on the high mountains. Helena snatched all the flowers and did not give even a single one to her sister. The next day she called to her sister and said, "Go, Miracula, and get me some strawberries from the forest." "Alas, dear sister, where could I find any strawberries in this hard winter?" said Miracula. "How dare you argue? Go at once and get me the strawberries, or I'll kill you." The stepmother caught hold of Miracula and pushed her out of the door and shut it after her. Miracula went to the forest weeping bitterly. The snow was lying deep, and there wasn't a human footprint to be seen anywhere. She wandered about for a long time, tortured by hunger and trembling with cold. At last she saw the light she had seen the other day. Overjoyed, she went towards it. She came to the great fire with the 12 months sitting round it. "Please, kind sirs, let me warm my hands at the fire." Great January nodded and asked her, "Why have you come again, and what are you looking for here?" "I am looking for strawberries. My sister Helena and my stepmother bade me bring some strawberries, and if I don't, they will kill me. Tell me, fathers, tell me, please, where I can find them." Great January arose. He went over to the month sitting opposite to him. It was June, and handed the club to him, saying, "Brother, take the high seat." June took the high seat upon the stone and swung the club over the fire. The fire shot up, and its heat melted the snow in a moment. The ground was all green. The trees were covered with leaves. The birds began to sing, and the forest was filled with all kinds of flowers. It was summer. The ground under the bushes was covered with white starlets. The starry blossoms were turning into strawberries every minute. They ripened at once, and before Miracula had time to think, there were so many of them that it looked as though a red carpet had been spread on the ground. "Pick them at once, Miracula," commanded June. From these pages that we have gone through, the story that we come across is that once upon a time in a faraway country there lived a lady with her two daughters. One was her own child Helena, and the other her stepdaughter Miracula. The mother envied Miracula just because she was more prettier than Helena. The gentle-hearted Miracula was unaware why her mother was cross with her. Miracula did all the household work without any complaint, while Helena just dozed about. One day, finally, Helena and her mother decided to throw Miracula out of the house. It was freezing cold outside, but they planned and told her to bring the violets. Miracula knew it was not the month of violets, but she had she was sent out to freeze in the cold and die. Miracula, weeping, wandered in the forest, bitterly tortured by hunger. At last, she went towards the light which came from the top of the mountain. There she saw 12 men of different ages sitting around the fire silently, three of them with snow white beards, three of middle age, three were a bit younger, and three youngest of them were the handsomest of them all. Now you know students who were these 12 people? They were 12 months of the year, January to December. The one sitting on the highest seat was Great January, who held a club in his hand. Miracula was frightened to see anything, but finally she asked them if she could warm her hands. Great January gave her permission and inquired why she was out in the freezing cold. Miracula told him that she was looking for violets for her sister and stepmother, and if she would not take it, they would kill her, and also asked him where she could find the violets. Great January informed her that it was not the month for violets, but also helped her on listening her difficulty by telling the month of March to take the high seat, and gave the club in his hand. When March waved the club over the fire, the snow began to melt, and suddenly the season changed and it turned to spring. The violets began to bloom, and the full ground looked like a blue cloth spread on the ground. March ordered her to pick as much violets as she wanted. Miracula picked a big bunch and ran home. Her mother and sister were surprised to see the violets and inquired where she found them. The next day, they told her to bring strawberries, and they threw her again in the chilling cold. Miracula was upset again, as it was not the season for strawberries, but still fearing for her life, she wandered outside again for a long time. At last, stopped overjoyed, seeing the light again. She again pleaded the months to warm her hands. Great January nodded again and asked why she was out this time. She told him that she was out for the strawberries this time. This time the high seat was given to June with the club. Soon the snow melted and it was summer season, and the ground was full under the bushes. Soon the ground under the bushes were covered with white starlets, and the starry blossoms were turning into strawberries every minute. They ripened at once, and there was a red carpet spread on the ground. Miracula filled her apron with the strawberries. What happened after that? Children, we will study in the video number 2. Now we will look at some meaning. Let's see the first meaning, students. Gentle hearted, kind. Cross, angry. Adorning, making something more beautiful. Abused, treated cruelly. Tortured, suffered greatly. Club, a thick, heavy stick. Blazed, burned strongly and bright. Scampered, moved quickly with small light steps. That is all for today, children. Hope you have liked the video. Let's meet in the next video tomorrow. Thank you. This is your English teacher, Mrs. Dipti Kamalwar, signing off. If you have liked the video, please do not forget to like it.